There, a lot of people have died. I was the one who made the move to the people. I print different papers, which we posted. So due to that reason, the government wants to me. And I leave my 3 children and my wife is there. When I'm calling to my family now, I have 2 small twins. They are 6. Always they cry. When I go to back, the government will arrest me because I'm the member of the opposition party, which is criticized by the terrorist, that is Ethiopian People's Patriotic Front. So I cannot go back. But when we talk about the political situation of the country currently, all the Ethiopian peoples are, I can say, arrested. As we all know, he released more than 700 prisoners. But there are a lot of 10,000 prisoners in the prison, which we will know their name. It released the one, most of the people, especially the abroad countries, the known peoples. So, now, currently, the government wants to elongate his authority by dividing the people with language for 26 years. But the whole Ethiopian peoples are aware about that one now. And they started to move. When there was a mobilization of peoples in Gondar in the last 2016, what the people said, the Oromo blood is my blood. And the Oromo people what said, the Amara blood is my blood. So they are aware how the government divides the people. Now they become one. So we have to talk about the whole Ethiopian peoples. Not only the Oromians, not only the Amharic speakers, not only the South nations. The whole Ethiopian peoples are arrested now. So what will be, well, in my opinion, what will be the next solution? If the government wants to become a democratic government, of course, he has to arrange forums. First of all, he has to take out the anti-terrorist law. And it has to arrange and decide. We know the opportunities of different countries. For example, the experience of the Sweden. The community administers their community. We can see the experience of Switzerland. They elect on the road with a direct participatory. As we have seen, there was election in Ethiopia, but it is not election. As we all know, the member of the parliament, almost 100% we can say the member of EPRDF. So they sit in the office of the organization in EPRDF, they talk and they go to the parliament hall and they raise only their hands. So if the government says, I'm a democratic government, he has to arrange the forum. He has to give the opportunity to the people. Of course, the government is released around 700 something prisoners. The government, it is not the government released, the result of the people, the result of the blood of the dead people, the result of the movement of Yos, Oromias, Amaharas, Tabu. So, what is my opinion is, especially the different countries, the government of Sweden, the government of USA, the government of other countries has to stop and think how our people is died. They are giving a lot of dollars to the murderer state. So why they say stop this action?
I think one of the key issues is that we need more journalism from Ethiopia, because this development 2014, 15, 16, 17 up till now, it has been broadly not reported in international news outlets. You need to search on the internet to find information on what's happening in Gondar or in different places. And I also thought that it would be a huge news when people were released from prison or so on, but it was the same time as a school shooting in the United States, and then that news dominated everything, as it usually is. And I think that is one of the things that we are trying to do here, to encourage others to write more about Ethiopia and the happening, and also do more journalism ourselves. Thank you so much for thank you so much for this. We will take some more questions in a while. I'm just thinking to also, because one of the blind spots also in Ethiopia has been what is happening in the Ogaden region. There is no news from that region. Before I take some questions, I will just ask Abdullah Hussein about what is the situation there. Has any prisoners been released from the prisons there, etc.? We will check that, and then we will continue the discussion altogether. So please, Abdullah Hussein, welcome. You are a human rights activist from the region. It's the most eastern region in Ethiopia. And a couple of years ago, you also worked within the administration, close to the current president, Abdi Ili. But you escaped, and you are. I sometimes compare you with Edward Snowden. You escaped as a whistleblower with evidence of human rights abuses, and also with evidence relating to my own case, which shows that it was fabrications, the evidence against me and Johan, just to make that clear and transparent. This conflict has shocked Ethiopia, but you don't hear much about if there are protests in the Ogaden region as well. How is the situation there? What is happening there?
Thank you very much. And this, I think, will be the first interview the two of us make. So the Somali people in Ethiopia are actually the third largest majority in Ethiopia. The first being the Oromo, and the second being the Amhara people. But when we compare to the situation currently in the Ogaden region to the protesters in the Oromo region and Amhara region and other new places that have recently joined in the protest, it's obvious that it's quiet in the Ogaden region, despite some small activities that are actually invisible to the outside world because of some reasons. And I think it would be a good idea to take a look at the background of this region and why it is so quiet in the Ogaden region. One thing that is really significant in this situation is back in the time when TPLF took over Ethiopia. The ONLF, which is the Ogaden rebel group, was actually working together with the TPLF, and they won the first election that took place in the Ogaden region. So they were administrating the region, and the parliament actually voted for independence from Ethiopia. If I remember correctly, it was, I think, 84% of the parliament at the time voted for independence. And it was starting from that time where the conflict started, where the TPLF started actually shooting at the leaders of the ONLF at the time. From that time on, there has been internal conflicts in the Ogaden region, and because of this reason, I think around 7 or 8% of the National Army of Ethiopia is actually in the Ogaden region and has been for the last 26 or 25 years. So the TPLF was, in fact, using this huge army to kill, torture, and displace the civilian people in the Ogaden region. Because of this, tens of thousands of people have been killed, a huge number of people have been arrested, tortured, and we have a lot of intellectuals who fled the region. What is left is actually people who are uneducated, people who grew up in this whole mess, people who don't have the capacity to help the people in the Ogaden region. And among them is the current president, Mr. Abdile, that I have worked with. So during all this time, they were using the resources and economy they were getting from the largest regions like Oromo and Amhara and other places, and they were in fact using this economy into breaking down the Somali people in the Ogaden region. I think I would not be wrong if I say the most or the biggest resistance to the TPLF was in the Ogaden region before this last years. And because of this, they have succeeded to silence the people in the Ogaden region, despite the conflict that are still going on. And this has played a significant role into the situation that we see in the Ogaden region now. What has happened, for example, one thing I can take as an example is an incident that took place in 2016, which can be the latest or the recent example that can explain the situation in the Ogaden region. There is someone who is one of the intellectuals who fled the region, who lives in Nairobi. He wrote something on Facebook that was obviously against the president, and he was publicly criticizing against the president. What the president did was he arrested the whole family of this person, and it was really a sad situation, and he actually executed the younger brother of this person in a horrific and unimaginable way by torturing and then throwing him out from a car that is on speed, together with his father. And they did that while his father was watching. This was the latest, or one of the latest things that can be taken as example. So this is the situation or the reality in the Ogaden region. And this, I think, obviously explains why it's so quiet in the Ogaden region. But I think now we have new activities, even though they are really small, because of the huge demonstrations in the Oromo region and the Amhara region and other places. People in the Ogaden are also trying to come out and do something, and the president is actually now paranoid and like he's kind of losing control, and people can see the whole situation. Yeah, so I think that might explain why it is so quiet.
But has anyone been released from the jails in the region? Has there been the same kind of process where people are giving pardon or clemency?
Unfortunately, despite the release of those prisoners being, personally I see it as a positive thing. It was a happy news. It was really a good news. It was not only the prisoners, but it was also their families that were suffering, and it was, I think everyone was happy because of that decision from the ruling party. But unfortunately, what undermines this positive kind of step are few things. The first thing is the new state of emergency which has been tested and failed before without any kind of solution. And coming up with the notion of the state of emergency only after the positive steps has been taken undermines obviously these positive steps. But what even undermines more is the fact that there hasn't been even one single person released from the Ogaden region. So this sends a message that the ruling party, or like to be frank, the TPLF never responds positively. There hasn't been any protests or demonstrations in the Ogaden region, but there are tens of thousands of prisoners. They haven't released a single person until this time, to my knowledge. But they have released prisoners, around 6,000 people, because of the pressure from the Oromo people and from the Amhara people. And this tells us that they don't respond to anything possible. The only way anything can be changed in Ethiopia, to my understanding, is to put more pressure on the ruling party. So there hasn't, unfortunately, been anyone released.
So what do you see as a solution from your perspective? What could be a way forward to solve the political crisis for Ethiopia?
I think one thing that I see as a positive and really a good step is the fact that the Ethiopian people have now seen their power when they come together. They have tested their power, they have seen it, and I think there is no way going back. I think what is inevitable for the TPLF is to let go the status quo. Apparently now they are trying to maintain the status quo, but I think they need to let it go, and they need to open up, and they need to make changes. Those steps were really, really positive, and it was good news that they have released those people. They need to continue, and they need to release also people in other places, not only because people from the Oromo and Amhara protested, but they also have to release those who haven't protested. Otherwise, it's only pressure that makes them protest. So I think the fundamental, there's a need for a fundamental political change. And what people are demanding is only a fundamental change. So I think they need to stop trying to maintain, as I said, the status quo, and they need to open up. And I think we have seen the state of emergency before, and there was no solution because of that. And I think this will only make more chaos and bring more instability.
Thank you very much. Does anyone watching the live stream or here have any question or comments? Please raise your hand. Yes, in the back. Do we still have the small flying mic? Yeah, you could send that one back.
I have just a short question. What can you say about the current negotiation between the TPLF and the OLLF in Kenya? Do you know something about that?
I can readdress it in the mic. Yeah, there has been news on peace talks in the region between the OLF and the central government. Is that a sign of anything?
This is this is not the first time the TPLF tried to have negotiations with the ONLF. I think this is the third or fourth, I think. And what makes it different from the previous ones is the situation in Ethiopia at the moment. The TPLF they are not actually honest with the negotiations with the ONLF, but they are just trying to use the ONLF as a propaganda on the international media to say that, okay, we are opening up, we are negotiating with people, we call it terrorists, we want to open up the political space. But I don't see anything further than that. What has happened is they were on the table with the ONLF in Nairobi when they were releasing around 6,000 people. and they haven't even released one political prisoner from the ONLF, when in fact the ONLF was the only political party in Ethiopia that agreed to negotiate with them. So I mean, it's unfortunate, and it's I don't see any good sign of any positive thing from the negotiations. And actually, it ended in they publicly said they could not agree or they could not sign anything.
Yeah. We have first in the back questions. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, precis. Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, I would like to say thank you for Martin sharing this kind of discussion with the Ethiopian the current situation. What's my question is about this current issue, especially Professor Mokria. The current issue, all over the Ethiopians, as my friend said, we are in the arrested actually. But what kinds of mechanism to avoid this dictator government? I think we need to have unity. Can you say something about the unity to solve this problem? The second question is, what will do the diaspora to avoid these kinds of, as we know, a lot of people are killing in different Ethiopian regions, but the Europeans, every country knows detail about this one. So what we'll do, what we live here in the European country as a diaspora, what's your advice for Mr. Professor Mo? This is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, we could take them first. Answer the questions about unity and the diaspora.
Well, yeah. About the diaspora. The diaspora part of the population from Ethiopia is the most difficult one. The older generation, people like me, we came from, a different situation. We know as the old Ethiopia. We know how it looked like, and the old Ethiopia is a source of the present problem. What the young generation has to understand is the conflict that exists in that country is not just from today. It is roots in history. And if we have to understand each other, if we have to cooperate for now and in the future, we have to really try to understand the historical part of the problem, what history has done, what history has contributed to this problem. When we understand that, the Amharic youth are going to understand why the Oromos are asking for liberation, independent state, why the Somalis are fighting like they do to separate from Ethiopia. There are different issues in different parts of the country. Or population groups have different demands. So if we understand each other, and then we can come together and sit down and say, okay, I understand you. It's just by understanding each other that we can come to some solution. Otherwise, if we don't know why the Somalis are fighting, what is their problem, what is their demand, we are not going to really come closer to them. So what I mean here is what I'm talking about is, even in the diaspora, we have to start to learn about each other, about the issues that
different groups in that country raise, we have to know our history properly. There is this history of 3,000 years. That doesn't cover the whole country. Some people think that that's almost, what is repeated and repeated and repeated if you read these articles, these commentaries that are published in the many websites. That doesn't say much about our problem today. It is not the history of the whole Ethiopian population. So let us understand history and then understand what each group or each people, every people are saying. I want to ask you a question. Can I or can I come?
Come later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's have one more question, and then we will take your last comment. Yeah, in the back.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Martin. As usual, I know you on social media, and then the first time I came to Sweden, I met with my lawyer at immigration, and then he was unable to understand me when I tell him about Oro. And then after a few days, he read the book about you, what happened to you in Ethiopia, and then we met again. Oh, now I understood you. I read what happened to our journalists in Ethiopia. And then I said, oh, thank God that Martin was jailed there. Because
That was mine.
yeah, sorry to say so, but you let people to understand some of the situations. And probably I believe that the destiny that you ended in jail in Ethiopia has turned your path, because you has become now the voice to many people who are voiceless still. So I thank some of you staff or colleagues with you too. Next, what I want to suggest is an Oromo. I want to just say a few things about Oromo in Ethiopia. To talk about Oromo, I better talk about myself. I was born from the Oromo parents. When I was in high school, I started to question some of the histories in the back. All the stories I hear from my parents is about Ethiopia, and the situation of the Oromo was completely horrible. And then immediately I started to question myself. And then in high school, immediately the government started to burn a forest in Oromia just by using a helicopter.
Yeah. We just change mic. You can use this
Okay,
mic. Yeah.
okay.
Please send it back.
So immediately the government started to burn a forest, which is conserved for long centuries by my people. And then we started to strike. Immediately, majority of my friends were shot. I was jailed, my brother was jailed, my cousin was jailed, my best friends were jailed, and we started to sustain severe torture. And then after, even we were cancelled from school so that we will not attend any school. So we tried to move away from home, and then we attended school and then completed high school. So then after, the torture continued. The torture was not only physical, psychologically. My name is Chana. Everybody, when they see to my name, everybody except the Oromos and a few nations in Ethiopia, the way they see to me or look at me is different. In the university, as a chance, I was assigned to Mekane. There I stayed for, as a chance, I studied long course, so I studied there a long time. I sustained a lot of trauma. And then I came back home and started to serve my people in my profession. The situation was totally impossible. So, the situation for the Oromos, here we are the living witness. Some of them, thousands died. They were shot. still the Oromos are bleeding for centuries. So when we talk about the Oromo, but there is nobody who is supporting the Oromos, especially when we see the today's crisis in Ethiopia. It is not the TPL that is strong enough to do these all things in human actions to the people. But there are a lot of forces behind, a lot of advice, a lot of economic support, a lot of military support. But no one is standing for these people. Not only the Oromos, for the whole Ethiopian people, no one is standing. So, my question is, I know that African lives never matter country, or it might matter too, but everybody is human on this planet. Every life matters. So as a cost of somebody's a little benefit, probably something on the Eastern Africa, the whole people are suffering. They know nothing. They did no crime. Still what's going on is nobody is willing to bring a good solution, ending solution to that country. But for example, in my mind, I was thinking about Martin, what happened to Martin. Probably commonly when the Oromo cases or Ethiopian cases comes to my mind, Felix Horn and Martin, they are the two guys who always tries to put something on the media. Even the internal displacement right now happening in Ethiopia on the Oromo people, by instigating conflict between the Somali and the Oromos, by arming some of the Somali groups. The government reported 700,000 people are displaced. But it is a lie. There are people who have real information. More than 1.6 million people have been displaced without any help. Mothers are delivering under the tree. Thousands are crazy. Children are without parents. They are gathered in a big hall and they song the song. So all this thing, even though this is happening, no one is there. No one utter a word about these people. Probably this is equivalent to Rohingya people. What happened? Are the Oromos not people? Are they not a human being?
As was discussed also earlier, I think one of the problem it's not been covered in the media is the state of emergency in the region, which has been lasting for so long. I mean, journalists have been banned for traveling outside Addis Ababa, have been banned for visiting these cities, and that has had, I mean, a certain effect that news is not really coming out. But hopefully in the future, that is one of the things that together we can change to make sure there's more reports coming up from Oromia. You have to make it short.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
So I will try to shorten, but the last message I want to give is probably still the situation in Ethiopia will have a solution only and only if the space is evacuated for the people, so that the people will decide for themselves. Unless and otherwise, Ethiopia will never have a solution. Still, what is going on is not creating this space, but modifying the present situation. Just modifying. That is just, it is a conspiracy being done with the people. Okay? So, still, what I recommend is, probably this is just on air, so some of people, journalists who concerns about humanity might join you, and still they have to do a lot about the Ethiopian situation. Thank you.
Thank you. We can take, I think, maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and then some final words for everyone who have interviewed, and then we will continue in social media the discussion. Okay, please, and then you.
Thank you, Martin. I would like to ask one question, just a question. Mr. I forgot. I would like, as I know from the information you get also in the Jiga, and then you know the area very well, and you know the relationship between the Oromo people and the Somali people from your childhood. Can you tell us about the relationship between the Oromo people and the Somali people. When asking this question, you know what happened now in Somali region, Ogaden, and more than 600 or between 600 and 1 million almost deported from the area. Is it surely the problem from between the Oromo people and the Ogaden people? Can you think about that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's very important. So the Oromo people and the Somali people in Ethiopia share the longest border in Ethiopia. They share religion, they share culture, they share language. For instance, we have Oromo people who cannot speak Oromo language, but Somali language in some places. We have Somali people who cannot speak Somali language, but Oromo language in some places. And these people are intermarried. They have lived together for a really long time, maybe since the beginning of time, I don't know. Some, not natural, but some kind of small conflicts. But in the history of Oromo and Somali people, this is the first time this kind of conflict. So that is something that should be looked at. I actually shared information with the Oromia Media Network before the current conflict started, before the new police started shooting at Oromo people. I gave information that was aired in the OMN TV, and the information was this: the TPLF is giving more weapons to the Liu police, and the idea is to start a conflict with the Oromo people. The TPLF is trying to change the focus of the Oromo people from the government into their neighboring brothers and sisters. And this was what has happened, I think, only a few months after we aired that news on Oromia TV. So I think it's obvious when you look at the kind of the conflict, it is nature, and when you compare it to the previous ones we have seen, it is, I think, obvious that this was organized by the ruling party. The conflict was not only in one place, I think it was throughout the whole border. It was like if two countries were going into war. And this was the first time we have seen this kind of conflict. One thing that's also important to understand, that this was not a conflict in between the Oromo people and the Somali people, is the fact that the deportation of the Oromo people from Somali region is stopped in one day. So when you look at this, if the government was behind this, then when they give the order to stop it, it can be stopped in one day. But if the people of the Somali region was behind deporting the Oromos from the Somali region, then you could not stop it in one day, because then it is the people who are, forcing these people out, and then that will take time to stop it. But if you have a situation that you can stop just like that, then it even makes it more obvious that this was someone was there who was given the order to kill people, and that same someone, after some time, decided to say, like, okay, now is the time, let's just stop it. So I think it's really obvious that this conflict was not, in fact, from the Oromo people or from the Somali people, and the Liu police who have massacred, who have committed a lot of massacres and killed a lot of innocent children and women and men in the Oromo region, have actually killed more people in the Somali region than the Oromo. They have tortured a lot of people. They have committed a lot of continuous genocides in the Ogaden region, and they are actually a militia that was created by the TPLF after the 2007 attack in the oil company, on the oil company in Awalle in the Ogaden region. After that time was when the TPLF decided to create militia from within the Ogaden region to keep the national army safe from crimes against humanity. And what this Liu police was doing all these years is it was only killing these people in the Ogaden region, and now they have been used on the Oromo people because the Oromo people have put pressure on the TPLF. So I think it's just obvious that this was not a conflict of the two people.
I think we will have, yes, one more question. Just wait for the mic.
I have a question for you, Martin.
Yes.
As we all know, first of all, thank you for arranging this kind of discussion. As we all know, you were jailed and prosecuted by the wrong accusation of the regime. Since you released from that horrible prison, you are working a lot of things concerning Ethiopia. My question is, Ethiopia currently at its crossroads.
One idea to make sure that more voices are heard, and also that we hear, we try to invite, many people tonight also try to hear what is the government standpoint, how do they defend themselves against the accusations that have come up here as well, because that is also what journalism is about, to let everyone give their best arguments, and the difference between journalism and activism. But it's for sure, when I see
and as well as the conflict that is on the border that has displaced almost 1 million Oromos. The situation, as you said and as Jala I think said, it was created by the government. The journalists are saying ethnic conflict. That is not an ethnic conflict. It's a government that has armed the EU police and sent to fight the Oromos. The Oromos were displaced from the Somali state by the EU police. So this is not a conflict between people. There is no conflict, ethnic conflict in Ethiopia, by the way. I haven't seen people fighting other people and other people. The Amar and the Oromo, for example, do not fight each other as people. So I'm addressing myself to Martin. Please, journalists have to understand that what is going on is not ethnic conflict. It's a government-created, state-created problem. Number two is that so many people are displaced now from their homes, but the international community is not told by the state itself. They have not gone out and asked for 1 million people. Over 1 million people are displaced, and they have not asked for help. 1 million. The Oromo have been trying to help themselves. They have raised a lot of money for the poor people at home. Over 1 billion birr, I guess I estimated, but that is nothing for 1 million people that are displaced. Internationally, the Oromo diaspora has also contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is nothing. So what the journalists have to help with is to try to find out what's happening with this 1 million people that are displaced. That is a big concern. It's really a big concern. People are dying. Women, as Dr. Jala said, are giving birth under trees. Children are without parents. The United Nations, I think, Children's Fund has gone there and has come out with a horrible report recently. People have to look at that. So please, that is, to your attention to the journalists to really help as much as they can.
Do you want to say something that you haven't?
Not really much. I think this is about time when the Ethiopian people should bring the best in them out. I think Ethiopia will never be the same again. one thing that's really positive from all this situation in Ethiopia is the fact that, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is the fact that I see two positive things in the situation in Ethiopia overall. The first one being people have seen their power. And this is not only about the current ruling party, but this also sets an example for the next government as well. And that's really positive, and we should continue the pressure on the current ruling party. But we also have to put pressure on the opposition political parties. We have to pressure them into coming together and trying to come up with a solution. Because if we remove the current regime, and if we have different political opposition groups that are not working together, I think we might go into a disaster. So I think Ethiopian youth who are currently protesting need to also put pressure on all the opposition political parties. The second thing that I see as a positive is I think this is the first time when a lot of Ethiopians are coming into standing together. I have seen a lot of people who are actually putting behind all the old differences and focusing on the ruling party and coming into agreement that no one can be free alone and that we need to stand together and get our democracy and freedom together. And I think that's really positive, and we should push for that. And congratulations to the young people of Ethiopia who finally forced the ruling party to, for instance, for the prime minister to resign, for the ruling party to release all these prisoners, for all this state of emergency that is not really working. And I just would like to take the chance to say congratulations and thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who joined us here at the Blank Spots office in Stockholm, and thank you all who are watching from all around the world. And I really will listen to the demand for more journalism from Ethiopia, and we will try to put boots on the ground as soon as possible, and to keep on reporting. So thank you all so much. Tack så jättemycket. Tack så verkligen för perspektiv och tack så mycket.